Greetings gastronauts, this is KeefCooks, I'm Keith, and today I'm going to do a London classic. I'm going to make East End pie and mash, or pie mash as they like to call it. Before I do that, a shout out to Modern Classics, who's one of my long-standing fans, who's been away for a while, but now he's back and he's very welcome. Nice to see him again. So, East End pie mash, I've done it before, I did it 6 years ago, and it was a catastrophe. Oh, I got so much flack, I had to turn the comments off in the end, because some of these East Enders are a little bit protective of their special food, which is, you know, fair enough, but I was misled. In that video I made a huge hoo-ha about not wanting really to do it because I've never actually had an East End pie and the mash and the liquor, the parsley sauce that goes with it. But I had a request and I'd wanted to wait until I managed to get down to that London and the East End of it and try pie and mash. And I should have done that, but I didn't. And what I did do was I followed a recipe on somebody's blog that was just ludicrous. It was such a bizarre way to go about making a pie. Anyway, I have now been to the East End of that London and had pie mash and liquor, and it was interesting. It was nice. I wouldn't say it was the greatest pie or the greatest mash that I've ever had, but it was okay, filling, nutritious, etc. I'm not selling this really, am I? Enough wittering. If you enjoy this video, give it a like, share, subscribe, etc. And let's get on with it. East End pie and mash. Right, I'm going to make the pastry first. You might be put off by this. You can, you know, buy shortcrust pastry, but you can't do anything like the real thing because East End pies use two different kinds of pastry. They use a suet pastry for the bottom and a shortcrust pastry for the lids. It's not hard, it just takes a little bit of time. Key ingredient for suet pastry, obviously, is suet. And if you don't know what that is, it's the hard fat that accumulates around the kidneys of the animal, the pig, sheep, etc. Yeah, and some countries you just can't get it. Well, you can probably get it online at vast expense. Don't worry too much if you can't get that. You can just use lard. Don't tell them I said that. And this is what commercially produced suet looks like. It's little pellets and they're lightly covered in flour. So I've got 300 grams of self-raising flour and I need 150 grams of suet and a teaspoon of salt. We just mix those all together and then add water, just enough to make it come together in a ball. Right, so that's come together. I'm going to wrap it in plastic film and set it aside to rest till we're ready for it. The shortcrust pastry for the lids, you need 150 grams of plain all-purpose flour. Mix in a pinch of salt and then rub in 75 grams of butter cut into small pieces. You could use lard as well, it's cheaper. The price of butter these days, it's scandalous. So you just work it with your fingertips and basically we're breaking down those lumps of butter or fat and getting them coated in flour. And when it's done, it'll look like coarse breadcrumbs. And then just same deal, add enough water to make it come together in a ball. Little splash more. Wrap it in film, set aside. So the whole thing about East End pies is they used to be eel pies because the River Thames was just bursting with eels. And, so you just dip in and grab one and make pie out of it. Gradually they've died out and become replaced with minced beef or, finely chopped real beef. But the liquor that goes with pie mash continues that tradition. It's a parsley sauce and it would have been made using the water, the liquor that the eels were cooked in, so it's very fishy. That's been retained to go with your minced beef pie, which sounds really odd but actually it works really well. And also what you have with it is chili vinegar. Now I'm going to make the filling, and this is where it gets a bit weird because East End pie mash shops don't pre-cook it. I'm not at all comfortable with that, I don't think, because it's also cooked really quickly, really hot. I can't see it working with my oven, so I'm not putting it in raw. I'm going to give it a bit of a cook. In fact, I'm boiling it. I'm not even going to saute it to get, you know, a bit of Maillard reaction going on. And I'm certainly not using an onion. That is sacrilege. So all it is, 500 grams of minced beef, about half a litre of beef stock from a cube, and salt and white pepper, maybe half a teaspoon each. Pop the beef into the pan, the salt and the pepper, and pour the stock over it. And then we'll whack that on the stove, bring it to the boil, and then let it simmer for maybe 10-15 minutes. We want the liquid to reduce and the beef to cook somewhat. Actually, there is one other secret ingredient, which is gravy browning. So this is basically just a liquid caramel. It has no flavour, but it's very powerful. It gives a really dark, deep, rich, dark brown colour to the meat. Okay, it's reduced quite a lot, so I'm going to just transfer that into a bowl. So in retrospect, I should have done this before I did the pastry, because this needs to be cool before we can put it in a pie. It's actually not bad. I like my gravy to be, well, more of it and thicker, but this is what the experts say, and who am I to disagree? Okay, while the filling is chilling, I'm going to roll out the dough. So I've got my fabulous pie dishes, which I've had for a very long time. I got 24 of these, and I'll put a link in the description below, so you can buy 24 as well. And I'll probably get 24 pennies if you do, so that'd be nice, thank you. Okay, let's do the lids. So we want the usual flour on the worktop. So I'm just going to make 4 for this video. So roll it out thin and then use one of your tins as a template, unless you've got cutters that are exactly the right size. And the pie mash shops don't do it like this, obviously. They have something like a giant pasta roller to roll the pastry to the right thickness. Set those aside. Right, I've rolled out half of the suet pastry for the bottoms. So then you take a tin and make sure there's plenty of flour around so that the pastry doesn't stick to the tin. Then grab a bit and chuck it in. And there's this trick that I used to do, which is to take another tin and use it as a dobber to push the dough in like that. So it's very quick and easy. And then we put the other bit in there. Okay, that's my 4 dishes, and this is number 5 dobber. So just pop that in there, and then we can trim the whole lot with a knife. Clever, eh? I've actually got a ton of pastry left over, so we'll wrap that up again. We will label it and freeze it for use on a future occasion. I'm going to do the potatoes now because I want them cooked basically before the pies go in the oven, because I've also got to do the liquor. So peel your spuds. Then we cut them into chunks that are about the same size. Let's stick them in a pan with salt and water. Then we stick that on the stove and bring it to boil, and then simmer it for maybe 10-15 minutes till they're nice and tender. Right, I'm going to build the pies. So I've got my bottoms, I've got some water. I need to moisten the rims so the lids will stick. Okay, and here's the cool filling, so stick a load of that in each one. Alright, there we go, and we've got a bit of meat left over. That'll be enough for another pie later. Now, we slap the tops on, and you know, one of the things about East End pies, one of many things, is they were fast food. They were like the original fast food. So you didn't mess about with crimping the lid or any kind of decoration or excessive stuff, and you don't actually glaze them, which, yeah, well, that bugs me because they do look a bit horrible. They get, you know, they're cooked in a very hot oven. I'm going to put mine on 240 Celsius, but it's a fan oven, so it's like 260, which is about what they use in the shops, about 500 Fahrenheit. So we'll see how that works. And they cook them for 12 minutes, and that scares me, but I'll stick them in. Okay, I'm going to do the liquor. I've got a fish stock pot. These are pretty good, these jellied stocks, but they are pricey. If you are an East End pie shop, a real one, you'll be doing eels, and you will have the fishy liquor that they're cooked in, but I'm not doing that ever. Fish stock thing and hot water, handful of flat leaf parsley, chop that as fine as you can. Well, the pies have had their 12 minutes, so let's have a look. Yeah, those look exactly like East End pies. Little scorched bubble, and well, that's how they're meant to be. Now, normally when I'm making a white sauce, or you know, most kind of sauces, I will start off with a roux, melted butter and stir in flour. But this doesn't. This uses a slurry of flour and water, and this is to thicken it, and that is mixed into the stock when it's heated. So we'll go over to the stove. So the stock is bubbling away, and we'll add the slurry of flour and water. Then we'll add the parsley and some salt and maybe some white pepper. Alright, so I've got I've got 3 of the pies out of their tins. Now, the thing that really does my head in is the mash. Is my tatties boiled to perfection. So we just drain those, and we add no butter, no milk, just a bit of salt, and a bit of white pepper, maybe a bit of that liquid, and mash it till it's smooth. That is very, very dry, so I'm going to add a sploosh of the cooking water. Okay, I'm going to put it together for a taste test with me. And there's a thing you need to know about the presentation of East End pie mash. They don't do it. They just do not do it. What you get is you go up the counter and you say pie mash. And before you know it, they've slapped it on there, but the mash goes on as like a ski slope, and they scrape it off the spoon or the spatula on the edge of the plate. That is really what they do. And then the liquor and the pie, obviously. One more thing, chili vinegar. So chili vinegar is just malt vinegar or non-brewed condiment infused with bird's eye chilies. Right, here we go. Oh, smell it. I might have given the impression that I was slagging it off while I was making it, because, you know, the techniques and that are so different from what my instinct tells me I should be doing, but it's not bad at all. Okay, I've got to say, much better than last time I tried it, and actually very good indeed. So, find yourself in that London, head down to the East End and find one of the shrinking number of pie mash shops, because it's an experience. Okay, thanks for watching and see you next time.